speak, as Airports Company South Africa, we do so after consultation with the rest of the stakeholders on our platform. So this environment is actually an airport community that is run consisting of airlines, cargo operators, ground handlers, hotels, public transport operators, stakeholders, South African police service, crime intelligence, customs. I saw a colleague here from customs, Eguruleni, police department, retailers, and commercial operators. All of us with a clear commitment of delivering an excellent service and, importantly, delivering a pleasant service and passenger journey throughout the year. The challenge that comes with having full volume or fuller volumes during peak season do require specific attention. And I can confirm that for this festive season, like any other, we conducted ourselves by putting in place plans that would have indicated additional staff, additional resourcing, and also clear indication of how we're going to manage the festive season. Let me also add that the industry has evolved in terms of safety regulations, the business model, and the regulatory regime. And as such, the structure and the operating systems of our airports are highly regulated. So we really have to be 100% on point because of the requirements on safety and efficient travel that accompanies this environment. Aviation is a highly safety sensitive area where nothing can go wrong. And as such, we are also really disappointed in the events that have happened because the rigorous planning that came into place basically did not anticipate the events that actually did occur. The reason why we're here with our stakeholders, BMA, jointly to confirm operational readiness for the balance of the festive season to yourselves is, as Airports Company South Africa, we traditionally have a briefing session. We had this briefing session on the 12th of December, and it's an annual occurrence. We normally take journalists through the platform, show you the numbers in the first Friday of the school holidays, numbers coming through, and start to show you and share with you quite detailed presentations around our projections of numbers of people expected, what we've put in place to welcome them, how many staff members we've increased, how we've gotten rid of problems. It used to be maybe in the parking area. And we really take journalists through so that you can walk with us in this journey and prepare. We have two peaks. The first peak, which is generally higher, is this one of December in the outbound, what we call the outbound journey, where most people are traveling either internationally or domestically. And what we really would like to do, as we normally do as Airports Company South Africa, is to share that detailed information with you. Because we think if you understand better exactly what we're dealing with, the numbers that we're dealing with, the crowds that come through, you'll have a clearer perspective than I think you sometimes do when it's driven by some of these incidences. So two things are going to happen with respect to that. I'm going to give you a high-level summary, but we've also asked my colleague, after the commissioner has spoken, to then do a quick presentation. Because one of the things that we're wanting to do, given the recent occurrence, is really make a proposal for altering arrangements for the balance of the festive season. And that's really the key message we would like coming out of today. That recognizing two incidences that were unrelated happening on this platform, we're going to make a proposal around different arrangements so that we ease travel during the balance of the festive season. So there are three issues that I'd like to address just to close off on matters that were already on the table. The first one, I'd like to just confirm. We had a press briefing on the 12th. We indicated that we had an incident related to jet fuel. We shared pictures showing a drive shaft that was sheared, shattered, broken, and we said we're going to take that to the lab and do analysis around that. When we get the results of that, we'll come back to you. I must be able to indicate that that has already happened. The engineers and metallurgists who are responsible for this have taken the part. It's in the lab, it's being analyzed. And at this point, one thing has happened. They've asked for additional information, which has then been supplied to them. And we do not have the results yet of that, given the additional information that was required to enable us to analyze the real cause. Now, this thing of analyzing this drive shaft is actually quite important, because what it does is it's going to tell us the several options, and we can't predict which one, but we can just give you an idea on some of the things may be possible. One is, it's possible that they'll come back to us and say the torque was too high. So i.e., I don't know how many people understand our car words, but if you imagine a drive shaft in a valve, that would mean the torque was too high. And that would have caused it to spin out of normal speed and crack. And that would be one finding potentially. The other would potentially be indicating that the temperature in that space was too high. And that's what caused this particular incident of shattering. The third option is to, maybe they would say it's an issue of acidity, and that acidity may have contributed to the drive shaft breaking up, or being fractured in the way that it was. All of those, on any other that they may find, we don't prejudge what the lab is going to say. But all of those options that will come out will then give us a clear indication as to the real root cause for the drive shaft to shatter. But we actually just didn't stop there. We went forward and did some work also on the Thursday on the 12th of December, which was to replace a valve. And the replacement of a valve was an additional safety measure, which was to ensure stability of the system after the replacement of the drive shaft. The second issue we have reported on is that realistically, we've been in this process of upgrading the jet fuel system. And it is unfortunate that what happened with the drive shaft happens at this time, when in fact, we were in the process of finalizing what's called the bypass, which means creating an additional route and a new pipe that would have been implemented in order to bypass, so that if an incident happens in the one route, we would bypass and go to another route. That project is already underway. It is going to be completed by February 2025. And in a sense, it was unfortunate that it wasn't completed before December, but that's a bypass. The third project, which is the third layer of protection, would have actually been an implementation of a new jet line, which, one, the design consultant is already in place. They were appointed through a procurement system. They have started doing the work. They are delivering a product in February 2025. In March 2025, we expect the contractor, on the basis of the design work, to come in and start installing that additional line, which basically would conclude the work, three-phase work now that we've done in stabilizing the system and ensuring that we don't have another incident. And that really would give you a clear sense of a multi-pronged assurance program that we have of various projects. First is the replacement of the parts, the second is a bypass, the third is the replacement of the line, which all are intended to stabilize the system and ensure that we don't have such challenges again. And all of this, colleagues, I must hasten to add, all of this could not happen earlier than today, could not happen earlier than 2024, simply because AXA received its permission for the 5-year period for infrastructure projects, gazetted by the Minister of Transport in January 2024, which comes with the regulator's permission, and allowed into the budget on the 1st of April 2024. And those projects are now starting, all the projects that are going to bring us up to speed and recover. We've commonly spoken about the 21.7 billion that has been allocated to AXA, and it comes with that gazette from January 2024, starting from 1st of April 2024, the implementation of 21.7 billion. But that amount comes in tranches every year for a 5-year period, during which we can confirm 70% of that amount has been allocated for refurbishment and rehabilitation projects, such as this jet line, and they fall within those categories. So ours really is to fast track the implementation of these particular infrastructure and systems, and ensure that we get back to every system being fully fledged, fully operational, and really brand new, and that's what we're required to do. But the reason we are seeing indicators of problems is because between 2019 and April 2024, effectively, we were not able to implement projects. And that's the primary reason. Everything came to a halt. We made significant losses, and we repeat the sad story of losing 2.5 billion in 2020, losing 1.5 billion in the next year, losing 1 billion the following year. The year prior to this one, we actually made a loss of minus 43 million, and only in 22, 23, 24 did we declare a profit of 472. And that means we're fully recovered financially, but it means we're lagging behind in terms of the infrastructure that we're to implement. Because again, typical PFMA environment, you get the money in April, you start the processes of creating demand requisition, you go into the SCM process, you follow the route, you then get a design consultant, contractor, etc., as we have followed. So in a sense, I think that helps to give context just on the jet fuel issue. The second issue I'll address, but I'll summarize on that because the commissioner is going to address it, is the issue of the Border Management Authority, which again, after we had addressed you on the 12th of December, as we normally do, there were then delays and queues on the 14th of December as a result of the border management system experiencing some problems. I'll leave that to the commissioner to answer and deal with in detail. But just to say, from our perspective, we've looked at the issues related to the impact of delays at immigration, and what we are going to propose is really a mechanism that assists border management whilst they are sorting out their system. Commissioner confirms that that will be sorted out by today, and that means even despite that, we really want to be cautious as Airport Company South Africa and announce a different dispensation so that we're able to cope. Not only do we have to cope with potential incidences of this nature, but more importantly, we have to cope with the bigger numbers that are going to come through our airport. And it appears that this year is even more significant. I will deal with that at this point. Now, our projections indicate that we will have 119,696 international passengers, and that means both departure and arrival. And we're going to have 262, 108 domestic passengers that are expected between today and the 24th of December. And we hope that gives you a little context of what numbers we are managing in this airport, which is generally not the tradition, and how high our peak is compared to normal operations. The busiest day generally in this period is traditionally the Friday. So the first Friday when schools close, the second Friday, which was the 13th, and we're expecting tomorrow, the 20th, to also be the busiest in the whole peak now. And that would give us 20,886 international passengers coming through, and that's both departures and arrivals, and 39,423 domestic travelers on the 20th. On the basis of the detailed information we have around how many passengers are coming through, etc., we are then also preparing for the next period, which is from January the 2nd to January the 15th, which is generally another peak of people coming back. But let me just hasten to add that the January peak is normally steadier than the December peak. So when people are going, they go faster than when they come back. They literally come back, and that curve slows down towards the 15th. But some people actually come back the following week of the 20-something of January, and others come back, later on. So that slope in January is not as high as the December slope. And if you understand that, that will just show you how we then do our detailed plans in order to deal with that. Now, we have an established team with BMA, and I'm confirming what the commissioner will also say. And as a result of the incident of the 14th, the technical team has been established, comprising of the critical partners here on the platform who are responsible for execution. That's AXA, BMA, SAPS, SARS, SSA, EMPD, and other role players, the airlines, the ground handlers, etc., which we as airports company feed into in terms of the information. And that basically constitutes a multidisciplinary approach that we'll have for managing this particular situation for the balance of the festive season. Remember, I said the festive season constitutes of the initial peak, which is tomorrow, but more importantly, then has the January 2nd peak that we're also catering for. We understand, importantly, also that we've had to do work to invest in training, and the training between ourselves and BMA. We periodically do joint and regular training exercises to ensure that our teams are prepared to handle a range of security scenarios, but also the issues related to travel. As a result of consultation and as a result of just looking at the few incidences we've had, we are proposing an alternative arrangement. And this is akin to what we have used during COVID times in order to be able to manage the big numbers that are coming through this festive season. So after consultation with BMA and ourselves to make travel easier and more pleasurable for travelers in this coming peak starting from tomorrow, this measure that we've used in COVID would actually ask for travelers to extend the time they spend at the airport. We're therefore moving away from the traditional 2 hours before international travel, and we're requesting passengers to arrive in this instance for this peak season 3 hours before. Just that additional hour is able to help us ease both the big numbers that are coming through, but also ensuring that we're able to support BMA in the implementation of their particular system. The plea for domestic, and the 3 hours is for international, the plea for domestic is to ask passengers to arrive 2 hours before departure time. And again, it's not the norm of the 1 hour, but extending it to 2 hours so that we can manage the numbers quite efficiently as we normally do in terms of both immigration procedures, but effectively check-in and security arrangements that are made. The other message we'd like to leave with members of the public is really just to ask that they work with us in this period. And prior to planning and getting to the airport, we really would want people to be fully au fait with the parking arrangements, the secure parking arrangements, so they are not stressed and rushed when they come to the airport. What we do emphasize is that if they are not being dropped off, that initial journey is sometimes in the peak season quite complicated. But we've made available long-term parking in places which will have shuttles that take people from that long-term parking back into the terminal building. And the reason we make this arrangement is specifically to ease up on the tension that happens when people are looking for spaces because they're in a hurry and they're in the expensive part of the airport. In the long-term parking, we've got special dispensation arrangements that will make it easier. But again, it can only work if they arrive earlier as we request so that they're able to come through. The second is basically to ask that they look at their airlines terms and conditions, such as baggage restrictions and other constraints that they may have. There are normally other issues that contribute towards irritation at queues, and that relates to excess baggage. When somebody has more baggage, then suddenly they are told they must go and pay, and then they get irritated, and there's disruption at that. So just dealing with the excess baggage that is very symptomatic of the Christmas period is an important one. The staff at security gates have also been instructed to enforce airline rules on hand luggage. So please make sure that you are complying with the weights of specific hand luggage and the restrictions that are related there. Again, there's another issue that causes irritation. When you get here and you get told your hand luggage is not allowed, you've got too many pieces and it's too big, etc. Just please work with us, pay attention to those elements and plan your journey very carefully. The other issue then relates to uncertainty. We are putting up additional information kiosks throughout the platform just to be able to facilitate passengers. We normally do for peak season anyway. But also what we're asking is we have an AXA app that is available on Google Play or Apple Store for those who are Apple based. And that app is really meant to help you navigate the various airports and the platforms that you're going to be. It really does help to use it, cashless transaction at the parking. It's actually quite useful. I think to conclude, the reality of the situation is reflective of a period during which we have high numbers of people coming through the airport. It's also symptomatic of a period which is really a transitional period where our upgrading refurbishment projects have really not been fully implemented, and that's why we're in this particular position. But we are a regulated entity. We get a tariff that is scheduled by the regulator, which dictates exactly when the money we get comes in, and we are then guided by those processes. Let me also indicate that what really has been quite problematic about the incidences related to this is we come to you as AXA fully aware of our obligation to be held accountable and fully accountable to yourselves as the public and our stakeholders around what has happened during this period. We open transparently to you, and the presentation will be able to indicate transparently on how we operate, what assumptions we make, how we perform, what staff we deploy, even if we can't give you too much detail in case those who have nefarious agendas get hold of the information. But generally, we're very open about what it is that we're doing, and we're transparent, and I hope today will constitute that particular spirit of AXA really working with you. And that's why we do detailed presentations. We do them so that you've got all the information in your hands, and you can really understand where we're coming from with respect to this. What I think has been unfortunate is that, and I speak to the media in general, that these incidences have led to personal attacks that are unwarranted, particularly on social media. There is not one day when AXA has chosen not to inform the public about what's going on. Not a single day. There's not one day, in fact, we overdo it. We spend 3 hours on the 12th, really ensuring that the message is getting through. And when we get to the point of being right at the bottom and are able to, denigrate in the team, executive team that is responsible for executing, and at no point we believe that, particularly social media can denigrate themselves by getting into chauvinistic language and misogynistic language and sexism and all of that. It's really just unbecoming. In a country where we have democracy, where we fought for gender equality, it really is unwarranted that we can be addressed as such, as people given the responsibilities of running this airport. So let me lay our commitment to transparently engaging the South African public, always reporting. We'll come back to you as we normally do in January, and we give you the figures and we say, this is what happened in the January month. This is how many people passed through. These are the incidences we had. These are the people we caught doing criminal things. These are the activities that happened in our platform. These are how many airlines. This is how much cargo went through our system. We are extremely transparent. And we really hope that everybody understands that we do so, firstly, out of the obligation that we have, but more importantly, we do so not expecting that we can be denigrated with behavior and attitudes that are really not in keeping with the constitution of this country. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, CEO, for those informative remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to highlight that we will be sharing the content after the media briefing. And we would like to now invite the Commissioner of the Border Management Authority, Dr. Michael Masiapato, to deliver a statement on behalf of the BMA.
Thank you very much, Deputy Assistant Commissioner Mokhodzi. Colleagues, let me start by recognizing the presence of the Chief Executive Officer of Airports Company South Africa, Madam Bumi Mpofu, all the executives from AXA who are in the room, the Deputy Assistant Commissioners, and all of the colleagues from the Border Management Authority. And let's also appreciate members of the media for having come through for this conversation. So colleagues, from the BMA side, the remarks will be very short, primarily on the basis that the CEO had covered the entire environment, as it were. But I think the first thing that we need to indicate, colleagues, is to say that myself and the CEO here actually spoke and fairly decided to have this joint conversation, particularly just on the issues around OR Tambo, as it were. And the reason why we had to do that is because traditionally, when challenges kicks in, sometimes you find that leaders disappear, as it were, and effectively start deploying the traditional philosophical approach of the proverbial bus, where we have then see as to which one to be thrown under the bus. So in this instance, we had consciously agreed that we are not going to use that as an approach, but we are going to be having this conversation and be able to reflect on the issues and be able to take accountability where there has been issues that we had to account for. Now, let me then start by indicating, I think fairly the members of the media are aware that as the CEO indicated in terms of AXA, as the BMA, we launched our festive season plan on the 2nd of December, where we literally laid out all the facets in terms of the preparations for our festive season. We have spoken about the preparations we've made, and now we are in the execution phase, particularly at the exit part of it. And then in January, we are going to handle the return leg in terms of the plan, as it were. And again, just for contextual recap, you will remember that as the BMA, we are covering all of the 71 ports of entry in the country, 52 of those being land ports of entry, of which the majority of our colleagues are now hard at work facilitating people as they are exiting through those particular platforms. But of course, the second area, which is within the context of the area we are at today, is that we operate in 10 international airports. And of course, out of those 10, there will be those that are AXA managed, but there will be some that are actually managed outside AXA, but we actually do work in as far as that is concerned. And we also do work in 9 seaports, as you will fairly be aware of. The most critical issue that we want to emphasize is the fact that in doing the work in this kind of spaces, we are fairly covering 5 critical areas of work. The most popular critical area of work is what we call immigration management, where we facilitate people movement within the context of them having to enter or exit the jurisdiction, but having to produce the requisite documentation as required by international protocols for them to either exit or enter the Republic. The second part of the work we do, obviously, is the port health related work, which we also do here at OR Tambo, mainly the screening of the people that are entering the Republic in making sure that we manage if infectious diseases or any kind of communicable disease, as it were. But the third area of work that we deal with is what we call agricultural biosecurity work. That is in terms of scanning all of your baggage as the people enter the Republic to make sure that we don't have the importation of any agricultural products that might be harmful to the Republic. And of course, the fourth area of work is the work that we call environmental biosecurity work, again, in making sure that we protect the Republic from any possible importation of infectious or invasive species, as it were, into the Republic. And of course, the last one is just broader law enforcement within the context of access control and all of those into the port. So that is fairly that as a context. Now, today we are talking within the environment of air. And of course, as we've indicated, of our key 3 international airports that we put on, the bigger and the first being OR Tambo International, where we are, and of course followed by Cape Town International, and then followed by Kinshasa in Durban, as it were. And those are basically the areas where we put much of the effort on. Now, we had indicated, colleagues, that we are fairly anticipating full recovery to the pre-COVID numbers of more than 6 million. And I suppose that is one thing that we have started seeing in terms of the numbers that we have started seeing coming into the country. Now, as the CEO had indicated, we are a stakeholder as the Border Management Authority within the airport under the broader leadership of AXA, which is in charge of the entire activities in as far as the port is concerned. The BMA's work is fairly limited on the international side of the airport, primarily to be able to do the work in terms of facilitating people movement in that context. And we do not have presence in the domestic side because that is outside the framework. Now, the CEO had indicated that indeed there was this day where we had a bit of a challenge. And we want to indicate this point that you will be aware that for many years, particularly since 2010, we have been using a system called Enhanced Movement Control System as the Border Management Authority, which is a system fairly inherited from the Department of Home Affairs as we took over last year on the 1st of April, 2023. Immediately after that, we had to deploy that particular system, but we had to then bring in a new system with the intention to enhance the security aspect in as far as our border management work is concerned. And that gave rise to us having to implement the biometric movement control system, which is effectively a system that enables us to take biometric of travelers for us to be able to ensure that the people who enter the Republic are indeed the people that they claim to be, and of course they are not necessarily to enter the country with fraudulent documentation, as it were. Now, this particular work of rolling out the BMCS, as we call it, is something that we have rolled out throughout all of the various ports out there. Now, it was just on the basis of this particular day that the CEO had referenced where we had a bit of a technical glitch in terms of the biometric movement control system. Now, if you are to look at the 71 ports that we are referencing, we are basically indicating that out of the 71, 70 ports had been incident-free in as far as this aspect is concerned, and it was only one, which is OR Tambo, where we had this particular glitch, as it were. Now, when that actually came through, we had to make sure that we respond with speed, and we had been able to deploy all our key top ICT officials on the ground to make sure that the issue is effectively addressed, and we are then able to get back to normal as fast as possible. And that has effectively been done. However, on the basis of the numbers that had been clearly coming into the space, we are finding it very clear that we did not necessarily have enough systems to can be able to kind of cope with the pressures. And it is for that reason that we had to then bring in additional systems. On that basis, I can confirm that 14 new systems have been brought into OR Tambo to be able to make sure that we bring in further capacity from a system point of view, but we also had to bring additional human resources to be able to deal with the challenge, as it were. 4 of those systems had already been connected, particularly at the entry side, and on that basis, 10 of those are actually to be installed today. So by end of business today, we will then be having all of those additional systems being brought into the space in order to make sure that we deal with the issues. And of course, as the CEO had indicated, we are expecting one of the peaks, as it were, tomorrow here in OR Tambo, but also with the rest of the other ports where we operate as the Border Management Authority. So on that basis, we are very much ready to be able to deal with all of those, those numbers as they come through into the value chain. So I just wanted to also indicate one point, just to demonstrate what the CEO had indicated. Just from last week up to this point, we have been able to work on around 676 flights as the Border Management Authority, and we've been able to clear around 334,063 people that had actually entered the Republic. And of course, within that number, some of them exited the Republic. The majority were actually entering the country, as it were. So fairly, that is where we are. I think the main point to indicate is to say that we are doing this work and make sure that we are able to have people having the better experience in terms of them entering the Republic in particular. And on that basis, we are looking at very shortened waiting time in terms of queues, particularly at the passport control area, which is the area where we had that particular glitch that we had actually referenced. In closing, I want to indicate that one of the main issues that gets cited in every time that we have this kind of conversation is the issue of corruption and the issues about officials and the people maybe taking bribes and all of that. So as the Border Management Authority, we had actually put together I would say a line where each and every person who considers that or who had experienced a particular problematic scene in the border management environment, they need to dial the number and be able to report that particular incident. And we do have a team that is behind the scene to make sure that that particular issue effectively gets addressed. If you have to check the officials in the BNA context, they do have the name tags, and to that extent, you need to be able to identify them by the name and be able to make sure that that is actually transmitted into this number. So we just want to use this opportunity to announce the number is 0801 229 019. So the number is 0801 229 019. So this is the number to report anything relating to border management, and we will definitely get the issue attended to. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Masiapato. Thank you once again to the CEO, Mrs. Bofu. At this point, members of the media who would like to engage in a question and answer session, or we are welcoming a presentation from AXA before the question and answer session. Thank you.
I don't know, many anos